So if you know me, you know I love reverse dieting. I talk all the time about the benefits. I think it's a wonderful thing, but at the same time, it's not magic, and I feel like there's a lot of confusion out there with regards to what reverse dieting is and isn't. So today I want to dispel some of the myths around reverse dieting, clear up the confusion, and make sure you stick around to the end because I am saving the biggest, most important one for last. Okay, so one common misconception around reverse dieting is that it can just increase your metabolism past your genetic potential. Like you can just keep increasing calories forever, and as long as you do it slowly, you'll just keep minimizing weight gain and your metabolism will just get faster and faster and faster. But that's not how it works. The point of reverse dieting is to undo the suppression from the dieting you've done, whether that's straight from a cut or maybe a long history of yo-yo dieting that's caused it to be suppressed. The point is your metabolism is now slower than it should be because of the dieting. The reverse dieting process allows you to undo that and get it back to where it should be genetically while helping minimize the fat gain rather than just jumping calories straight back up fast and probably gaining more weight than you want. Now, if you use reverse dieting to go through more of like a lean bulking phase and you add more muscle to your frame, yes, your metabolism will speed up a bit from the extra muscle and even a little bit more fat too. If you weigh more, your maintenance calories will be higher, but it's not because of the amount of calories, it's because of the mass that was gained. Another thing that takes a lot of people by surprise is feeling like, well, I'm reverse dieting, therefore I'm gonna be less hungry. But most of the time, especially in the earlier stages post-diet, not only are you not less hungry, but most of the time you're even more hungry than you were when you were dieting. And if you're not prepared for this, it can really take you by surprise, get you frustrated, and it can be really hard to keep your calories down, and you can undo all your hard work from your cut really fast if you're not careful. And there's two main reasons for this. One is physiological. Your hunger hormones are all messed up from the dieting. Your body's below its body fat set point. It's trying to do everything it can to get you to gain the weight back, so it's natural that it's gonna make you more hungry to try to get you to do this. But I also think there's a psychological component to it as well, because I think it can be easier to feel like, well, I can deal with hunger in a cutting phase because I know it's part of the process and I need to deal with it to be able to get to my goal of losing more body fat. But now that your cut's done, you're not going to see that result anymore. You're less likely to want to deal with the hunger. Now you're over the cut. You want to be done feeling like this. Plus, now you're focusing on a goal of actually eating more food. It's literally on your mind, and where your mind goes, your body goes. So you're more hungry because of this. So it can be very challenging whether you reverse or even just bring your calories up faster. No matter how you approach the post-diet period, you're probably going to be more hungry and it's going to be difficult. So I strongly recommend you basically view the earlier stages of the reverse as more like an extension of your cutting phase, because as long as you stay diligent through it, this is how you can get your calories nice and high, help maintain your weight better, and get to a better place. But it's going to be a grind and you need to accept this. But if you weren't prepared for it, you can feel like something's wrong. I promise you there isn't. Now, in the long run, yes, you will be less hungry from reverse dieting. And I can't tell you how many people who felt like they've been hungry their whole life and they just felt like it was impossible to ever feel full. Once they finally go into a good reverse diet and they do it long enough, they are amazed. They actually get to the point where not only are they not hungry, but they're so full, they're even having a hard time getting all their calories in. And it's because they finally took enough time, then stopped dieting all the time, got their hormones back into a good place, got their metabolism back up, and now they feel full and satisfied because of it. So yes, it will eventually make you less hungry, but don't be surprised if you're just as hungry, if not more hungry, in the earlier phases. Now, another huge confusion, and this is something that kind of actually gets under my skin a little bit, is feeling like you should lose weight while you're reverse dieting. And it's not that it gets under my skin because you feel this way. What gets under my skin is viewing other coaches on Instagram and other social media platforms posting pictures of their clients who went into a reverse diet, brought up their calories significantly, and they lost weight. And then they say things like, see, this is what happens when you stop underfeeding yourself. Now you can start seeing progress, and basically setting the expectation that if you increase your calories, you're going to lose weight, when the reality is that's not something you should expect. It's very rare. And honestly, almost every single time that does happen, it's not because increasing calories magically made them lose weight. It's because by increasing calories and perhaps also having some extra accountability from having a coach, now the client is better adhering to the plan, and instead of having some lower calories mixed in with some huge binges and not being able to see progress, now they're consistently hitting their calories. Now they're in a deficit and they start losing weight, even though their calories are technically coming up by targets. But it's not your target calories that matter, it's your consumed calories, whether you track them or not. So while it's possible you could lose weight, you definitely shouldn't expect it. And not only that, but you should probably expect to gain some weight, but understand the benefit of it. I see this in my coaching applications all the time. My goal is to increase calories and lose weight, but unfortunately it just doesn't work that way. It doesn't make it not worth it. It absolutely is, but you have to understand it's setting you up for the success. It's not what you're doing now that gets you there. Okay, another common myth is that basically every calorie you increase during your reverse means you're gonna be able to diet on that many more calories when you start your cut. That's just not necessarily true. What I mean by that is just because you go up another 100 calories doesn't mean you're necessarily gonna get an extra 100 calories when you start your diet. You might, but it's really almost more about length of time out of dieting than it is about the exact number of calories you're eating. Now you wanna get them up. There's benefit to getting them as high as you can, and you wanna make sure you at least have enough that you feel satisfied, and when you do start a cut later, that you have enough room to make the adjustments necessary, not only for the initial phase of the cut, but also as you hit plateaus to make adjustments. And you can't just increase your calories to a certain point and then immediately drop them into a cut. Your body hasn't had time to adapt and it's not going to respond, and you're going to have to start over. The other danger with this, if you try to force it to some certain number that your body can't get to because maybe you use some sort of TDEE calculator or a Mueller equation or some sort of calculator that says you should be able to maintain your weight on this amount of calories, well, that calculator doesn't know you, your genetics, your diet history, and everyone's different. So if you force it to that, but your body can't genetically handle that, you may end up gaining a lot more weight than is necessary. Plus, I find that everyone has kind of like a threshold of calories they need to get to when they do start their diet. So you may be able to start on more, but you have to get into it, see, and adjust if your body isn't responding, and eventually you'll get to that threshold and things will start moving. Now, when it comes to the exercise side of things, it's certainly a good idea, especially if you're doing a lot of cardio, to taper that down throughout the process. So when you do start your cut later, you have more room to make adjustments so your baseline isn't super high. What I mean by that is, say you're finishing your reverse doing 5 hours of cardio a week. Well, now that's your starting point. So if you want to use cardio to create a deficit, now you got to do more than that, versus if you only do an hour, you have much more room. But it's not the same for strength training. Your strength training should stay honestly relatively the same whether you're cutting or whether you're building. You want to use strength training to build muscle when you're out of a cut, and then you use it to retain that muscle when you're in a cut, but you alter the cardio and nutrition side of things to either put you into a deficit or a surplus, or even if you're just trying to roughly maintain. So it's important to keep training hard no matter what phase you're in, and this is something so many people struggle with, is they only work hard when it's time to cut. And then you've missed out on what, in my opinion, is the most important part of creating the long-term success you're after. It's not so much what you do when you cut that makes the biggest difference. It's what you do when you aren't cutting, and taking that time to build not only muscle, but metabolism, and setting yourself up for that success. But if you fall into the all or nothing mentality, you just stay stuck. And honestly, that's kind of a perfect transition here to another kind of like myth or misconception, whatever you want to call it, is that the reverse dieting process will be mentally easier, but that's actually the opposite of the truth. Most people, maybe you've experienced this too, have a much harder time sticking to the plan when you're not in a deficit. Like I said earlier in this video, you're less motivated when you're not going to see that progress. And even if you're building muscle and you know that, you're not going to physically see that until you cut down the road. And it can feel like, why am I working so hard if I'm not going to see the result, even though you're doing the best thing you can for yourself? It just doesn't feel that way. And what's worse is a lot of times you just feel like, well, I'm going to gain weight anyways, so what's the point? And then go way off plan and gain way more weight than you needed to because you just completely lost all motivation. So if you don't find other things to focus on other than, I want to lose weight, things like performance-based goals, being able to eat more, being able to be more flexible, but you can't just let things go completely either. So I'm telling you, the people who make the biggest mind-blowing transformations aren't the ones that just crush it when they're cutting. It's the ones that work hard all the time through all the different phases and make massive changes over a long period of time by staying patient and continuing to work hard. So don't be the person who only works hard when it's time to cut and ends up slacking the rest of the time. Remember, you've got to do this stuff for the rest of your life, so don't get too caught up in the result. Now, with all that being said, you're probably wondering, well, how the heck do I even know when I should end my reverse diet? When is it going to be okay for me to go into a cut? Well, I have a video you can check out up top here next that will talk about everything you need to know when it's time to end your reverse diet and go back into your cut. Otherwise, I think you'll like this bottom video instead. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll see you next time.